Clarksburg School Committee on Thursday, March 7th, 2019 at 4:30 p.m. I'd like to look at the minutes and ask for your discussion approval. Your motion?
I motion to approve the minutes of the Clarksburg School Committee meeting dated Thursday, February 7th, 2019.
Second? Second. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Yes. Thank you. Oh, can I still ask? The bullying prevention policy update, were you able to select a committee yet?
Yeah,
No.
I did get we got some feedback from I think you should review from the state about their investigation, and they, one of the points that they made when they had the phone call with Susan Nichols was that we should make sure when we revise it that we also, some of the new language includes staff, so it's not just a bullying prevention policy for students, that also specifies that it should apply to adults and staff, so let's make sure we put that into the revision when we do that.
I don't think there's that many revisions necessarily, it's pretty much.
Yeah, it's just an annual
Like
review.
Bessie.
Yeah, that was just a recommendation they made, was that when they said that we followed all the current policies in place and that the policy was fine, was that it's also recommended that there is an annual review process, and that's basically what we're doing. So.
The financial statement, the profit and loss budget, which is actual from July 1st, 2018 to March 5th, 2019. Any motion? Second?
I'll make a motion to accept the budget, sorry. Second.
I have a question under the discussion part. On the first page, under the superintendent's office, other expense, what would that entail? If it's over what was allotted, but it's very specific.
That's for the advertising, for the when it was posted?
4,398, all that?
There's
I did for my class too.
the classes, and then also that's where the percentage of like the union electricity goes, and so it's kind of like a catch-all for, we try and split up between the special ed office and the superintendent's office, but the electricity, the water thing that we get, you know, any expenses that are outlined on that union budget.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't think we've ever budgeted or any of the town budgets for any of the expenses for like that class of the new superintendent program or some of those types of expenses aren't budgeted for. There's some of the state conferences they require you to go to, so I think that goes into that as well.
Any other discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. That's passed. We have Corey Nicholas with us from North Adams Public Schools, talking about food options.
So we have a couple of meetings, Mr. Franzoni and Tara. Carrie was involved as well. So the idea is, what would some kind of a shared services look like for Clarksburg and North Adams schools? Just to go over essentially the two options that are available, at least through DESE. You basically have a vendor path or sponsor path. The major difference between the two, and I won't get into sort of a lot of details about the vendor, because in my view, I would advocate for a sponsor track. But a vendor is basically North Adams would supply the meals and then invoice Clarksburg. North Adams would, you know, as a result of supplying meals, would be responsible for like the menu, the preparation, the employees, and Clarksburg would still have to maintain the administrative aspect, all the requirements for National School Lunch Program, National Breakfast Program. And the sponsor aspect, so you still keep all of your, nothing changes from a DESI standpoint for Clarksburg if North Adams were to be the vendor. From a sponsor standpoint, North Adams would take on Clarksburg as a site. So literally, Clarksburg, within the security portal of DESI, would be transferred from Clarksburg into North Adams. That is an annual application process for, even for all the North Adams schools. I have to do one. Carrie probably does one for Clarksburg. As a result of that, essentially all of the responsibility shifts to North Adams. So all the administrative requirements, all of the food procurement, the ordering, obviously the making of the meals, all the responsibilities within the 2 federal grants, breakfast, lunch. From a North Adams standpoint, North Adams would receive greater efficiencies to become the sponsor versus the vendor, and I think it would definitely be, for me, it would be the way to go. Again, it's an annual thing, so it isn't something that couldn't be backed out of, per se, on Clarksburg's end, if that, or either end, I guess. So to kind of get into, I guess, what that entails. So from a sponsor standpoint, all of the revenue, all the expenses come out of North Adams. North Adams is required, is now responsible for everything. So food service staff. So if we want to specifically talk about details, and my vision would be for meals to be delivered rather than actually prepared here. There's several different reasons for that. I can certainly ask questions or get in all the details, but I'm trying to just kind of keep it as broad as possible. But all of the ordering, and again, all of the administrative pieces. You have the reviews from DESI, all of the monthly claims, essentially what your business manager does now. All of those responsibilities are taken away, and that goes onto my plate. Do you want me to get into? I don't want to confuse people, so I'm trying to be clear and kind of separate the 2 options.
So it would be as if Clarksburg were another school in the North Adams district?
Specific to food service, that's a very
Yes.
important piece.
Yes.
I don't want people for parents, to be confused by that.
Okay. Financially, how does that affect us?
So essentially, you wouldn't have any financial responsibility for the food service program outside of anything that would be unusual. I guess I would say.
But the Clarksburg would have to pay you, right, for the meals?
No, that's the piece. So because Clarksburg would be a sponsor, so all the money coming from federal, state gets funneled into North Adams versus Clarksburg. So North Adams receives all the money and also pays all the bills to operate the program.
I think I guess specify is that currently we receive funding to cover based on grants, I guess I would say, based on need, depending on how much or percentage of free reduced lunches. It's all figured on a percentage basis, right? So there's not like the employees would be employees of North Adams Public Schools as opposed to being employees of Clarksburg. That would be something that would be absorbed into the program. We also have talked about, I don't think obviously our numbers aren't as high in percentages of those levels in terms of free reduced lunch, but anybody that's paying for their meal would pay that and go into North Adams because they're running the program. So I don't think it would be,
Would our
there's no
numbers
cost to us.
change because of joining North Adams, or no? It would still be based on?
So it's based on free reduced meal applications. I don't envision Clarksburg being able to ever be part of the community eligibility provision, which is the free breakfast and free lunch for all. So that's another role that I would take on, is absorbing all those. It's hard for me to compare because I don't know all of your internal processes here. So it's hard for me to, really give you all the potential benefits because I'm not fully aware of what you guys do here and who does it. But essentially, all of that burden of processing free or reduced meal applications would be gone. North Adams would take that role, connecting those students with free or reduced status, maintaining the enrollment, and, because it's a year-long thing, it isn't just something you do once, you do it throughout the year, because kids come and go, and their status can change depending on the living situation. Maybe not so much in Clarksburg, but, and then there's also, there's a lot on the DESI end to review all of that process, that free or reduced meal application process, that I believe Carrie does. But that takes a lot of time as well.
So we would retain our cafeteria workers?
We would have some of that staff that, I mean, some people have left this year.
Yes.
There's another person that's leaving this month for retirement, but they would be given the first option to work, I guess, if they wanted to continue in that. But we also have had for example, we didn't replace our kitchen manager last month when we had advertised for it. She has agreed to stay on for the rest of the year, but made it clear that just for the rest of the year she didn't want to stay in that role. So under this, if we went with this proposal, then we would have to look at realigning possibly some staff based on what Corey sees as his needs, but they would be employees of North Adams Public Schools.
But no
But
one
they would
really.
still physically work here, sorry.
No.
But they would still physically work here, we would still have a
Well,
kitchen?
so
or
let me
what's
say
the
not
delivery?
necessarily,
Okay.
because they would be, so they would have to apply. North Adams Schools has an association for their CAF workers and for their managers. So it's union-like, so they have contracts that I have to follow, 3-year contracts. So any individuals that work here would have to apply for any open positions that would be posted for this site. And then they could be, selected to become workers here.
And that's part of the savings too, because then, benefits with regards to the town and those types of things could then be shifted to them.
How many people does that affect? I mean, if I remember from the warrants, there aren't.
There's 3 employees in the cafeteria, so.
Yeah, and only one has benefits because the other 2 are.
So the other benefits too that Corey's explained to us is because North Adams is part of a larger purchasing group, that they are able to get a wider variety of lunches and breakfast for the students. I know from my experience, my previous job, that since Corey's taken over, there's our students are much more inclined to try the fresh vegetables and fruits that he's brought into all the meals. So it's really helping our students become more healthy. It's just because we're smaller, we can't do that at a small school. So that would be a real benefit to the offerings that could be provided to the students. Also, one of the things we've talked about, and it's not the main reason for doing it, but it could be a chance for us at some point to upgrade our breakfast program to get some more participation, because we discussed before how we only have about 10% of our kids having breakfast, and we're concerned about enough kids getting breakfast either here or at home in the morning. I mean, that we could increase those numbers by making some adjustments in our breakfast program based on some more options we would have at further discussion for that. I think that's an important start to the day for our kids, for any student, and that's another potential benefit of this collaboration.
What is the financial impact, Karen?
Corey and I haven't really run the numbers, there is in the appropriation, I think, $4,000 that, we could potentially cut if we needed to, but that's all that we have in our general appropriation. So the thought process is that it would be self-sustainable. So our reimbursements that this school generates pays the offset of the expenses from North Adams for doing the work. So sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around, you would think, well, we should be paying a bill for service, but that would be double dipping because they're already getting the money that offsets the expenses.
And what about paying Corey extra for taking care of our school? Is that?
That's, also would be offset with, he would, but that would also be through North Adams. And then, but his increase would come off of the reimbursements from Clarksburg.
Can you, I think you mentioned this before when we met, but for kids who pay here, did we talk about a point of service, a point of sale system so that that whole process would be easier, or?
Yes, it's a thought. I use one now in North Adams. I haven't contacted the vendor. I don't know how I could, the challenge is integrating another student information system. That's my word. You know, we have Power School, you guys have Reddit, right? I don't know if I can use, because it has to be updated daily, it's gotta be almost real time as students come and go. We also rely on that information for allergies, so we need it to be as accurate as possible. I don't know if I can also import an outside student information system. We need to find that information out. It'd be helpful if I could, because the cost, for a student information system would be quite low. Because currently now you have to understand, because the students are either classified as free, reduced, or paid, each one of those student accounts has to be tracked now. So as the students go through the cafeteria line, you have to mark whether or not the student ate, consumed, and now did they give you money or not. So times, 100 meals, that's a lot to maintain without a point of sale system, essentially cash register, where you're just kind of connecting a student with an account number, and then the point of sale system does all the work.
We don't have that now.
And we always get dinged on that, on our audits too.
Well, yeah, but she also said it works.
Yeah.
So we don't really get written up for that. We just we know it's not a super efficient way to do it. And actually, the truth is that Joanne doesn't want to do it that way. That was the way Sue was doing it before. And she's got a code system and she writes by hand everything down. And I think that's hard to maintain. Joanne would not like that, even if we did nothing moving forward with North Adams. We were talking about a point of sale system to put in place, which would cost money to buy for the school, because it's not super efficient how we do it right now. So that would eliminate the conversation around whether or not we had, well, it wouldn't eliminate it because we'd have to figure out something anyway.
Can I ask, does that mean you'd be able to pay online for your students' meals or not that? We're not getting that.
Could, once.
So the service to NutriKids, that's what I utilize. That's the most popular in the state of Mass. Is integrated with myschoolbucks.com, so yes, parents can pay online. There is a fee, but they have an app. You can see the student balance. You can see exactly what the student consumed.
I know. It's a nice thing.
It's very nice.
That was going to be a necessary upgrade anyways, or.
Yeah, and it's free to the district because the cost goes under the parent process. So, if you don't go to North Adams, you look for another point of sale. I would definitely look into how it can be integrated with my school bucks. They're the biggest vendor. I'm not aware of any other ones like that.
There seems to be an awful lot of pros. Are there any cons to this, or anything that?
You're definitely giving up some control. That's the biggest piece. In terms of menu planning, compliance, you're really reliant. But again, if North Adams is a sponsor, it's actually North Adams that's getting cited now, not Clarksburg. But definitely, I guess the control aspect of it, the employees, but obviously, my goal would be to work collaboratively with all the staff, to increase participation and just make the kids happy.
I think one of the real advantages, we just went through our audit for 3 of our 4 schools in North Berkshire, including Clarksburg. Going through that process with the state, Carrie was very involved in that as a business manager. That's not traditionally a duty that is assigned to the business administrator, but she does a great job of getting involved in that. Now that we're having a new person coming in, of course, we're, I won't say concerned, but that's not traditionally part of the skill set for a business administrator coming in. And she's done a great job with that. So, with her departure, we're certainly concerned with how we're going to monitor that going forward. I think one of the things that process pointed out to me was that we have kitchen managers in all of our 3 schools that were audited that do a great job, but I know so does North Adams, but they have Corey who oversees the whole program, who knows all the nutrition requirements, from the state and federal levels, making sure how the cafeteria system is run and run efficiently and according to all the standards that are required there as well. So I think it would help us in many ways in terms of having just a better product to put out to our students that would offer more variety and hopefully, like I say, get more participation, especially not just at lunchtime, but in the morning. I know Savoy, who just installed this system with North Adams this year for lunch, is functioning way above projection because of the, I guess the kids love the meals. They love the lunches, and they're talking about, how could they possibly do breakfast next year. That was something they wanted to talk to Corey about. So success of the program, I think, reflects on the great job that Corey does, and it could only be, I think, a benefit. And I just want to point out something, too, to clarify. We didn't follow through on the kitchen manager position, not because this is a done deal or anything, it's because we were talking about it. So we thought that it wouldn't be fair to hire someone for the rest of the year when the applicants that we had, who were all very qualified people, were going to be leaving another job. So while we were still uncertain about what the future of our food service program would be, we decided to basically table that until we made a decision about what our plan would be for next year. And thankfully, our current manager agreed to stay on for the rest of the year so that that would allow us to have the time to make that decision.
And I'll also note that with regards to reporting to the Department of Ed, a lot of our equipment is antiquated. It's depreciated down to, and when we are starting to talk about capital improvement plans, when you're starting to think about replacing a dishwasher that meets, I'm sure, some kind of codes and, walk-ins and.
The last dishwasher I bought was $24,000. Jury, just so you know. Restaurant equipment is not cheap
That's
at
a
all.
really good issue.
Yeah, it is. I like our old ones, I think, well,
So what are the next steps? Do you need approval from us tonight? Do you?
As far as DESI is concerned, I've never had to supply that. Like for Savoy, we also feed 300 kids a day at BART. So I'm not sure. I don't know on my end, as far as school committee and superintendent, if he hasn't communicated. I don't have a history of sort of what we asked for or what is required to move forward. There hasn't, for the last program at Savoy, there wasn't anything that we did extra. Again, aside from me filling out the application online with DESI and letting DESI know what the transition was going to be, what the plan was.
Might be good for us to have more conversation before, I know there's talk about checking the financial information a little more closely. I probably should have a conversation with Superintendent Malkus. I know we're at a meeting together tomorrow morning, so I think it might be good for us. I think we wanted to have Corey come because we've been having some really good conversations between the four of us. We had a few meetings and conversations about it, so we thought it was important to bring it to the school committee just to get your, to bring it up to the speed and to give you the information that we're talking about and to get your input on our ability to go forward with it. But we certainly have a little more work to do, I think, to make sure that it is what the presentation will be. So before you would make an official vote, I think we should probably do that first.
But I would like to have an official vote. I think that would be Any other questions? Thank you so much for coming.
I really just wanted to do an overview. I didn't want to kind of overly confusing or too detailed specific. So if you need more information, if you want to visit, Savoy or BART, because both of those programs are delivered.
What was delivered?
Yeah, that was my.
I was like, okay,
Okay.
I'm full, but I'm sorry, I just.
No, it's okay. I'm glad you asked. So everything would be prepared at Jury. That's my main hub. Again, there's a lot of deficiencies there. I have 10 people there now. I would hire 2 more to just specifically work Clarksburg. And that allows me, staffing is a big challenge, trying to maintain staff, keep staff. So that would allow me to, as I do now, is move staff around as people take, personal days and sick time and all that kind of stuff. So that's really helpful for me to be able to sort of fill holes as needed with the staff that I have at Jury and have everybody cross-trained and just have a real efficient operation. So a vended meal is essentially whatever there's hot pieces, there's cold pieces. I have all the catering equipment. And we would come in, I would need to purchase some things to be able to maintain proper temperatures, cold and hot holding. And then all the food would get cooked, delivered, and we set it off. We're still serving. So you're really not, a student really wouldn't actually notice the difference between service in any way. It might be set up a little bit differently, but all the components are gonna be there.
So
essentially.
that's where though we benefit from if we lose a dishwasher, so to speak, or something like that, that's not a requirement here on site any longer as far as lunch goes.
Correct. The only piece that I would say to that is having two staff here, we wouldn't be prepping food here necessarily, but I want to keep them busy while the students are eating in between lunches, and there's 3 lunches. To give you an example, my staff are accustomed to serving 80 meals in 12 minutes. Here it's 33 meals. So I want to find some things for them to do. So one of my thoughts was at BART and at Savoy, we use throwaway trays instead of actual lunch trays. There's added cost there. There'd be added cost as far as trash. So maybe my staff could use the dishwasher and run the trays through, kind of keep them busy between service, that kind of thing. So that way when they're coming back to jury, maybe the dishes are clean, we're just putting them away. So just sort of those kind of efficiencies I want to create. There's still, we have working coolers, so maybe I can have them do a little bit of prep here. But certainly not, I don't envision any large pieces of equipment being needed. So when I mentioned I'm going to have to buy a few things, it's just small Cambro catering kind of pieces of equipment, a few $100s a piece. And I'll need to get 1 or 2 hot boxes. Those are about $2,500 a piece. And that basically just holds the food well in between services and after as we get it out of the van.
So you do think we could maintain trays and silverware, because personally, that's just a really nice part of our lunch right now.
You use real silverware?
Yes.
That's very, I'm glad to hear that. That's surprising.
Yeah.
Most people don't, because the kids just throw the trash. So
It happens sometimes too.
yeah,
We
absolutely.
just don't have a lot of kids to do it, so.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if again, we would have to sort of figure that out. Like who's buying the soap, what happens if I don't know who your current soap provider is, or who services your.
No, I don't know offhand now.
And so who services your dishwasher to
Right.
make sure it's maintained properly.
Okay,
Temperatures, and chemicals.
right.
So we'd have to figure that piece out. It would be fair if you guys would be paying for service and chemicals, but North Adams would essentially benefit from it. So we just have to, But I think those are honestly, I'm an open and transparent kind of person. I just think that just good conversations around those things, or as events as they happen, you just figure out what the best and fairest way is to do things.
Right. The other thing that you mentioned in our pre-meeting was the snow days. So when jury's closed, there's no food.
Yeah, so-
That's another thing we just have to understand going into this, that we would, there's the snow days, but then there's the schedule. No, it's not the schedule. It's not the August time or anything. It's just,
Right. So the idea is, what's been communicated to me, kind of the standard, again, there's multiple programs that come out of jury, is if whatever the situation is, maybe it's a water break, maybe it's a snow day, we had a sprinkler issue with jury. If they have to close and keep staff and students out of the building, how could we possibly justify having food service cooking there? So if and when those, events do occur, I wouldn't be able to, I'm not,
Just avoid it.
don't get me wrong, I'd be happy to provide food, but I'm not being allowed to provide.
Well, I mean, for the most part, the superintendent's all communicating about what they're doing for those type of weather issues. So not that everybody has to go together, but we do try to, come to some group decisions. Truthfully, our schools usually will cancel
Correct.
more. I mean, Savoy's had more
Right.
snow days than Clarksburg or North Adams has had this year, just because of their location. So, but we did have a conversation at Savoy's school committee meeting on Monday, because we were talking about the schedule for next year. And the understanding was that, for example, next year the Christmas holiday is on a Wednesday, so it always creates a little bit of debate about, do you take the full 2 weeks off, do you come back Thursday and Friday, and I know that my understanding is that North Adams has voted to take the 2 weeks for their winter holiday break. So I know the Savoy had a discussion about, there was debate about, do they want to have Thursday and Friday? If they do have Thursday and Friday, there's no food. So kids have to bring their own lunch, so. Although there was some debate about, in favor of having the 2 weeks also, so, for heating the building and just, how productive are those 2 days, I guess is the other question about it too. So in terms of people taking vacations and just in general, making sure we're doing what's right by the students and the families.
And as an aside, we were talking as a union about having maybe, a universal within the union calendar.
Right.
So that might be effective as well, especially with these two schools.
Yeah, and since we have 2 schools that are working together with Northampton and the food service, that would make sense that we would, be working together. And traditionally, our schools start a little bit earlier because usually Northampton doesn't start until after Labor Day, but I think those are things that we can work out. I don't think there's anything we can't get. I think those are items that we could certainly talk about.
And this would become effective next year, the next school year?
Talking about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one thing we're making sure we can do it effectively, and we've talked about the timeline is, it's coming. We've already had a couple meetings and it's gone by very quickly, so that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention so we can have some more conversation, and we'll keep this on the agenda so that we can provide updates. And like I said, I would think that we should have a decision by next month, I would hope, and May at the absolute latest as far as we're going to go forward with this plan.
The only thing I would just add to that is, and maybe you and Carrie want to kind of investigate this a little bit, is the cutoff for CEP is April 1st. So, yeah, I don't know if Clarksburg would qualify. I don't know what it would look like, not having Clarksburg numbers, if I grouped it, how it would work, but if we go past April 1st, it would be a no-go for next school year.
Well, we should plan to look on that next week or two to make sure, what our process is and if we do have a chance of qualifying for it or not, so.
I think it would, it makes a lot of sense to at least kind of just do a broad view of it, not maybe get into the real details and spend a lot of time on it, but just look at it as a snapshot quickly, whether or not it makes sense to just kind of hurry up to try to meet that April 1st deadline, so that way you get locked in for September.
Sounds good. We'll definitely work on
I
that.
think if you would need our approval, we could have an emergency meeting and something just to pop out with that.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Corey.
Oh, you're
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Thanks, Corey.
Good.
We should probably communicate about scheduling another meeting, I think, between the 4 of us to have this one conversation.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
okay.
Definitely.
Okay, the fiscal year 20 budget review and discussion.
Okay, so we've had several meetings. We've met with the Clarksburg town with Carl McKinney and John Estes and Erica Olson. We've had meetings with myself and Tara and Carrie to review our budget. We were, Carrie and I met, I think before the last meeting with the Finance Committee, and I know they're requesting another meeting with our draft of the budget to go forward with, so.
Did they set that?
They haven't said it yet, no. So, I think we were told in one of our meetings that we had that our target number was 2%, so we've worked hard to come in at that number. I think we have 2.08% is our number at this time. That's, maintaining our programs, but there are some significant changes. I mean, one of the big changes from our last North Berkshire School Union meeting was that the Clarksburg percentage for expenses in the North Berkshire School Union office has gone from 34% to 48%. So that's increased that number. We had some other things written down here. Some other things that we have changed. We're going to have a full-time business administrator next year because with Carrie going to North Adams, we're advertising and looking towards making that position full-time. So there are some expenses on the union side of it that are more expensive. We're also, our plan hasn't been finalized yet, but having a full-time nurse in Clarksburg next year. Right now, she's here 4 days a week, and there's a person that works on Friday. We're looking to get that updated. The technology coordinator, we're still negotiating that agreement, plus that was a new position last year. We have put a $25,000 capital expenditure amount into our school budget because we wanted to start taking responsibility for making improvements in the school through our school budget. You know, one thing that isn't always pointed out, but, you know, Vicki Winchell in our office a few years ago began the process to get Medicaid benefits for the town, so I know that that's something that doesn't necessarily come into the school budget, but the town does benefit from that upgrade. And do you know how much Clarksburg gets from Medicaid?
It's like 34,000.
Yeah, so it's 34,000 is generated through the
It
school.
conveniently happened though in 2016, so, you know, the money has just always gone to the town.
And that's a process. So that's something we have discussions with the town about the, you know, about the budget. That's, you know, revenue that's being generated by the school that isn't always discussed in our meetings. So I think it's important to bring that to the attention of the school committee. There was a little bit extra for insurance we had in there, but I think our numbers have been indicating that it's not going to be as high as we thought. Any increase with insurance? What was the last number?
1.8.
1.8.
But there is, so Erica at the town did the projections for the insurance, and I did notice that embedded in the figure was an extra family plan and an extra single plan, which makes sense, but also keep it in mind when it comes to like, do we have to negotiate and cut, because those two plans is $30,000.
We currently have, you know, a special education position posted. We had a resignation. So we've had some discussions about, you know, posting, and it is currently posted to be replaced for the rest of the school year. We've had some discussion about, you know, where our plans would be for that position and a few other ones in terms of, you know, trying to address social emotional needs of our students. We've done, I think, a good job of that this year with the establishment of a student support center, and we talked about how to potentially repurpose some people to make that model even more efficient next year. We're still working through that plan. But those are, you know, this budget is maintaining the staff that we have now. There's no additions, there's no subtractions, but there are some additional costs in some areas that we have offset in some ways by our school choice account. You know, the one concern that we do have is that, you know, discussion with the finance committee about the retirement insurance line item that they're attempting to say should be at the school budget side of it. So we haven't really had an agreement or a conversation about that further with the finance committee, but we're concerned about that $94,000 that would impact potentially a program and another position possibly. So it could impact up to 2 positions if that is indeed the intention of the town and the finance committee. So we're planning to, you know, have some discussion that we don't think that is right, because it's not practice in any other town. Nobody else does that type of accounting procedure, so I don't know why we would want to do it here.
So how does one stop that from happening? Do we file a grievance? Just say, just say no, and then they have to.
And it would come through our vote, wouldn't it? We'd doing that to reach out to town meeting. I mean, it could be potentially, I think, of 2 different budgets that could be presented. And we could show the impact of what would happen if that was added or subtracted actually from our school budget, what the impact would be on at least one program and some staffing. And that's why, of course, that's why we don't want to do that, because I don't think we are overstaffed here now. I think we have this, maybe we could use some more staff, but I think the staff here does a great job. Claire does a great job as administrator of the building, and I think it would be really unfortunate if we didn't have the staff that we have, at least have now, to provide for our students.
I went through the budget and I have questions, but can I just meet with you some other time to go over them, or do you want to know?
It's up to you. We can do them now if you want
Just
to.
line items, do you have it?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm on page 1, and it's got the Clarksburg Public Schools draft 2
Yep.
fiscal year. I'm in the middle under superintendent's office. I just have like, how come question.
Sure.
The clerical salaries in 2018 went from 29,990 down to 10,829, and then it went up to 15. Is that?
So in I believe that my salary was lumped into clerical, and then I teased that out as the business administrator and put down the 1400 series below the clerical, so that,
Okay.
and the reason it jumped up for 2020 was because of the percentage going from the 34 to 48%.
The office supplies on the next line went from 850 to 12 just because, I mean, they,
Nope, those are all direct impacts from you going from a 34% to a 48%.
Yeah, most of the increase, I would say, with the.
So that's what makes it a little bit
district
difficult, because you're not gonna see your standard 2% raise across the board, because the percentages that were voted on at the union meeting are changing, so that, you know, the column that you're asking about now, the superintendent's office was 34%, and the one below it, Vicky and, you know, the special education, that was 43%. Now they're all 48% across.
Okay.
So, you know, it's hard to follow if you're just looking at the increases over with the percentages.
so the other expense, that's again 48%, including some travel probably that you had mentioned earlier in our budget.
Just primarily from programs, yes, not
Okay, and
necessarily
then
travel.
other
And I also sent to you the detail just now,
schools. Oh, okay.
showing you what hits that particular account, so when you get home.
Okay, thank you.
That's
Okay.
what it was. It says the-
Oh, all right, okay. Under the 1400 series, it's got business administrator, other / audit. How often is the audit, how often does it need to be done?
I think that one school districts are every 3 years.
Oh,
So,
one school district.
so like we're supposed to have it this year, but Tom, the audit company that we are using has not come out yet. So if they get it done in May or June, we could eliminate the budget by that, because it won't happen again in 2020, but I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, okay. Then I'm at the top of page 2, the coordinator salary. Again, you had references, right, John?
Technology.
Okay. This is exactly.
Yeah, I mean, the technology coordinator is still a little bit, well, it's not settled yet from our union meeting. We discussed Josh's contract at that time. I met with him afterwards. Seems to be a little bit of, we're trying to work through that. When Josh was hired last year in June, there was a little bit of miscommunication on from what he's told me, where he was hired at he was told he was being hired at a 180-day contract, so as a school year contract. So what he explained to me after the union meeting was that he accepted that contract because working just a school year with that limited schedule, it allowed him to also schedule some other work that offset basically the $20,000 decrease in salary he took to come and work for a first year school year from his previous job. There were certainly some other benefits to him, like not so much travel and some other, I guess, personal items that were, with a young family were important to him. But it also allowed him with his skill set to pick up some extra work that offset that decrease in his salary of his main job. So one thing I've been discussing with him was, and there have been some clarifications in here about his schedule of hours and, compared to a teacher's schedule of hours. And, one of the things that we had discussed at the school union meeting was, do we try to have him be on a full year contract with, like a 5-week vacation, like most of myself and Carrie as full year employees, because there is work that is being done throughout all the schools, and it could be done during the summer that would upgrade the technology, allow us to maintain it more effectively, just make it more efficient. We know that in our schools, at least 3 of them are older buildings, so we're certainly trying to keep our technology offerings to our students up to acceptable levels, so that we can help to prepare them in the classroom to move on to other schools where they're going to have more of a need to be tech savvy when they're doing their schoolwork. And also we're trying to prepare our students, as for jobs that are going to demand that they're proficient in their use of technology. And also, as has been stated many times, we're preparing our students for jobs that don't even exist right now by the time they get out into the workforce. So I think that technology is very, having that in our schools and having it be available to our students and our staff is very important. And Josh has exhibited certainly a strong ability to work with the staff, to work with administration, to upgrade our technology within the budget, and to also provide us with options going forward where we can be rotating technology into our schools rather than have one big purchase every once in a while. So I think it's, one of the things that I was told, and I was here obviously before that, was that this position has been a new person every year, and it was a student before we, a high school student before we hired him. So not saying that the student did a poor job, but it's not the same level of what, person like Josh's, time in his life and his expertise can offer to us. So he's made a significant upgrade in our union office and all of our schools. And I just want to try to maintain that consistency, because if we don't come up with an appropriate offer, then we're, risking the chance of him moving on someplace else where he can make a better living. And I know he said to me when I met with him that he's okay with either end of it. If he does the 180-day contract, now currently his contract is 210 days, because what happened was when he started last June, of course, if he wasn't going to start until September, he left his other job, he wouldn't get benefits. So I think the other days were added to his contract so that he could be able to start and maintain benefits. He's fine with leaving it that way, but if we wanted to have, a more contract that would allow him to work more days, then he would also be paid more appropriately. He would cut back on the side work and just focus on his job here. So I think that's something we have to still discuss and decide if that's. I've gotten different feedback from different towns. Some who don't want to do that, and some who said they want to at least explore it. So I think that's where we stand right now.
It'd be a big loss, I think, if he's not.
Certainly would be. He's really made a good impact and made some great connections in our schools, and I just think that that's such an important position in all of our schools now that it would be a shame to, I guess for lack of a better word, nickel and dime this a little bit and lose him. So I think that I understand that we're all in the same boat. We're hoping for more funding through the state budget. There's all this stuff that's going on now, and we're hoping that they'll adjust some of those formulas so our schools will all receive a little more state aid that's projected right now, but that's still up in the air. But we certainly, I would describe this as being a priority level for what we can provide to our students in the classroom, to have a person in that position that can allow us to do that.
Page 3, under medical therapeutic services, we've got contracted services, and we haven't had any. Is that put since 2017? Is that somewhere else, or?
Nope, because that was when we didn't have our own speech and language, and we were using the Berkshire speech and language, which we couldn't use. The actual first line is the salary line, and then contracted services is when we use an organization.
Okay. Under teacher aid, same page, there's quite a decrease. The regular aid salaries and special education aid salaries have gone down. Is that because we lost aides, or?
I think we have lost a position. That wasn't.
It's like 2330, that line.
Yeah, if you follow all the way to the right-hand side, I think what we started to do maybe this year is take the aides out of the Title I grant instead of the Title I teacher, so that we could avoid the 9% Mass Teachers Retirement administrative fees that you have to pay to any federal grant that you're funding a teacher from. So by doing this, we save that amount of money. So I think that the reduction that you're seeing is made up in the REAP grant and the Title I grant.
Okay, thank you.
So we said 9%, so before when it was a teacher, we have to pay 9%
Yes.
of what we were using towards your salary.
Yeah, so if we had a teacher that, had $100,000 salary, we had to pay 9% of that
Out of the grant.
out of the grant.
Page 4 at the very top, professional development expenses, they stay at 12.4. Is that just as a cushion?
Yeah, a lot of the professional development is, we try to cover it in grants the Title IIA grant, so I think that that number has stayed status quo, but, our PD has been pretty vigorous. I mean, I think.
Yes.
Right,
it's
we
been
use-
great, yeah.
We use, I think, mostly the REAP funding for the PD we did this year with,
Skillful teacher.
skillful teacher, I'm sorry. So I know we use a lot of the grant funds to fund that, and also we're in our calendar next year, we're reserving the Berkshire County-wide day in November that will allow our teachers to participate in professional development, a full day of it with other colleagues across the county. So we're trying to provide as many opportunities as we can for our teachers to get the best professional development they can.
And the other thing with that is that because the contract for the teachers requires a certain percentage reimbursed, those would also fall under PD other.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had quite a few teachers using that this year. There's new requirements for SEI and different things, so those kinds of classes, and it's, I think, $500 per class. So we're using a lot of that for that.
500 per class per teacher?
Yes. Well, yeah, and if they have multiple, is it per contract year? One? No, I think it's.
I forget what the actual language in the contract is.
We've had a lot of teachers taking classes this year.
If we can get down, we're still on page 4, under line 2440. On field trips, it went from 3,000 in the 18 down to 1,500 both of these years. Are we missing any field trips, or?
No, that was a decision that Tara and I talked about last year. She split the $3,000 and took $1,500 for after-school programs and that types of thing.
And the reimbursement is $500, and they can take 3 courses per year.
Page 6, for fuel appropriation. That includes the library as well?
No, I don't
I
think.
believe so, there's only one of ours.
Well, we heat them,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, I think when
don't know
we-
how you would split that up. So this building, our boilers heat them.
So yes.
So yes. I don't know that we receive anything from them for that.
yeah,
Don't they have their own budget?
They do.
They do.
So they don't give anything to the school per se for heating?
Not unless it's through the town. They don't contribute to the.
That'd be a good question that we could ask in our
Yeah.
finance committee session. I think
That
that
would
would
be
be.
a good question, because we're looking at concerns with our boilers, and if we're heating another building, that would be.
Yeah. My understanding is that
Town
we,
might want to look at as well.
my understanding is that building is, that the library is heated through, out of the school budget.
What about their electricity as well?
I mean, they
I
have,
don't know about that.
yeah, they have their own budget. It would be interesting to see
Yes.
how that detail is.
And do they pay for insurance for retirees up there? Nobody retired from there? And their budget? Well, we're just thinking about
Sure,
those.
sure.
special
So the town
questions.
must pay for,
As a
who pays their salaries? We don't.
No.
It must be the town that pays their salaries, yeah. But we pay the heat.
Possibly.
Yeah. And yet they don't allow some of the students in there on certain days, right? Okay. So that's something we could check.
Yeah, I'm writing that down right now. Just check into it.
I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I
No,
think
no.
that's an interesting question, when you're thinking about this with the finance committee, or other, what is it, DPW is also has their own budget in town, right? I don't know if anyone retired it's been around long enough to have someone retire from there to have insurance. I'm just curious if it's in their budget or if it's the town that pays for that, or I don't know how their budgets work.
Interesting.
Have we already canceled the company who checks our phone bills? We pay them $50 once.
We can cancel that one, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. And then explain capital improvement to me. On page 7, in the middle, 5260, union liability, what is that? The 509984.
That is a policy that covers the union office.
Like how?
Through Maya for, it's a fairly new policy, and I'm trying to think about how it came about. It was discovered that we had no insurance for our actual office at all because we rent through somebody else.
Like the physical part?
Yeah, like the
Okay.
computers and,
Oh, all right.
and like anything that was in the union office. The union office per se, like if you were a renter in a building and you get renter's insurance, that we didn't have any insurance. So it's $3,334 a year for that policy, and then that gets divvied up.
So that's our 48%.
Has there been discussion about changing our union office to the senior center?
There's been discussion about, some different buildings, and town hall's been mentioned, there's been different, I certainly think that, given we represent 5 towns, and we're operating out of one of the towns we don't represent, so we thought that it would, our lease runs until June 30th, 2020. So we thought that we'd mention that to, specifically to Clarksburg and Florida, because those are the 2, I think, towns in our union that would be best equipped to hopefully have some office space for us. One issue with our space now is that it's a good space, but it's not ADA. We talk about this building not being ADA compliant, our office isn't either. So that's the problem. I think our landlord has been very cooperative in terms of some changes we've made since I've been there and moving some things around. But I think that we should be, and we've mentioned this to our towns, that we would like to explore whatever options are available. And truthfully, there aren't a lot of options in any of the towns in terms of office space, but we would like to be located in one of our towns. And Clarksburg, has been some discussions with Mr. McKinney about that, and we're waiting for some more information back about what they would think would be best, and what their offer would be, because we're certainly going to talk to Florida also and see what they.
So, well, it'll be interesting to see if you do rent from town hall, whether that would come out of the school budget or the town budget. I think that would probably be something to be considered.
Right.
Although you have a new security system and
Right.
probably getting new windows and doors, so that would be nice.
So so you think that would be a good place for them to put us, since they're doing those upgrades? So.
Actually, I don't know if this matters or not, but I just pulled out the rental lease, and for some strange reason, it actually terminates May 31st, 2020.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Okay.
Tough time to move, but.
Last month.
Sure, well, I'm sure he'd be, gracious enough to extend it a month or something,
Right.
so that we could.
Yeah, it'd be better. And then that's one of the challenges we will have when we do move, is we don't have any staffing for that. So I like, for example, Northampton is moving their school office to City Hall in Northampton, but they have a maintenance staff. So that would be something, I don't know when the last time this office was moved, but that would be, obviously some expense there.
Do you need us to approve this, or just say, thanks a lot for all your hard work, or?
Oh, just one last note, just so everybody knows, the
Yes.
bus contract goes through 2023. So you do have, that's solid through 2023. And like John pointed out, for budgetary purposes, I put $65,000 in for the business administrators salary, which was what I was making prior to going shared, just so we had a benchmark, because I knew that the intent was to go full-time. And I also used the figure for Josh of 58,000, which raised him from 53.
And how does it look getting a new business administrator? Has it's been posted?
Yes, it's been
Yeah.
posted. We have a good applicant pool. We're right now looking through them, so we're going to try to schedule some interviews. We were discussing today that the first date that we thought would be available for interviews would be Monday, March 18th. We haven't contacted anybody yet about that, but at the union meeting, I'm glad you brought that up. There was a discussion about, I was going to do this later, but I was doing it now since we're talking about it. There was discussion about, what school committee members wanted to be involved with that process. Just I don't think we need to have 5 school committee members each time. If we wanted people, we could, but I think it'd be good to certainly have school committee representation on there. So, there was some discussion about who from this group wanted to be part of that, and there was some scheduling, challenges, but just wanted to see if that was something that anybody was interested in or available too. I know availability is a problem also, so. So we're thinking on the 18th that we can schedule on that day. We probably try to do, if we do 3 or 4, we probably try to do like either 3, 4, 5, and 6 or something of that nature, and that to have interviews all on the same day if possible, with another day as a backup in case somebody has a conflict. Think about it.
Well, that would be, if you're talking 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
Yeah, it'd be later in the day. So.
Yeah, that would be something that I would be interested in.
Oh, great.
Were those the hours, it wasn't the entire workday, that would be very nice.
Right. No, that's not inconvenience the people applying or the people on the committee. I thought it'd be better to have it later in the afternoon. So that would be my goal, is to try to do it somewhere in that time frame. Okay, so I'll put you down.
Yes, that'd be
Great.
Thank you. That was the 18th.
That's what we're shooting for. I can
You'll
let you
give me a
know.
confirmed, okay.
Yes.
That's a Monday.
Was
Yes.
anybody interested in
I'd be interested,
having
but not
to
available.
get the questions that were put together for the North Adams Business Administrator position that we used for the interview?
You said you have questions from that.
I'm asking if you'd like me to reach out and, it might be nice to have like standard questions.
Be good to have some reference point. I mean, my plan would be to have the committee meet before and to review questions. Or that could be one of the sources for some questions. I'd ask the people that are going to be a part of that. I've asked Carrie to be part of that committee since she has such good knowledge about the position. Principal Niddle from Rowe has volunteered to be the principal representative on that committee, and we thought we got several school committee members that would be helpful as well. So we don't want to, 10 people, but I think it'd be good to have a good representation from the different towns and in all areas, so we can make a good. It's an important position. It really, I think, in our school union, it's more important than ever because of all the different duties that are taken on, and you're dealing with 5 different towns that all have different accounting systems and the ways of doing business, and so it certainly is important that we this process yields a good candidate. And I'm very pleased with the pool so far. So it's going to be a good group to choose from. So it's we've had some good success recently. Our new school adjustment counselor came from a large pool, and he's doing a great job. So it just shows, I think, that our schools are doing well, and it draws quality applicants for the positions.
Anything else, Carrie? No? Thank you very much for all your work in the committee. Kara? Heather?
One of the things we talked about was our presentation to the finance committee. It was mentioned that in the past that it was a school committee presentation, so we were going to ask for, when they asked us to come before them, if, try to schedule when some maybe they'll come with us to that conversation. So just wanted to check in with,
Yes.
we'll let you know what the date is, and
Okay,
hopefully, or check with you on when you're available, because I think it's important that we have school committee representation. And one thing we talked about in these are open meetings, so I know we had a conversation with Tara earlier in the week, and Carrie, myself, and Deb Rosali was there too, and just talking about how it's important that we start letting people know to come to these meetings. I think to support the school, and especially with around the item of the retirement insurance. I think that would have an impact on our school, and I think it needs to be some of the people that are just residents need to know about those meetings, so they can come and voice their opinion as well, if they, so choose to do so.
Principal Barnes?
I did not have a slideshow for you tonight. I knew that
Superintendent
Superintendent Franzoni has to get out of
At least I've
here.
learned something, yes.
So I'm gonna try to be short and concise. Just to update you on professional development, we have 2 people in the union who are now trainers for restraint certification. And Brian Wirt is one of them, who is our PE teacher. So we did have on February 12th a restraint recertification for those people in the union who are already restraint trained. They have to recertify. So it was really nice to be able to have someone in-house do that training. So that occurred, and Mr. Wirt also did de-escalation training with all of our staff here on February 13th, which is something we do yearly. So those 2 things happened in February, and as I mentioned before, we were continuing with the research for better teaching skills with teacher professional development, even though our facilitator that we contracted with is done. The teachers here, the instructional leadership team has continued that work. Teachers broke into groups on our February 13th half day. They each divided a part of the book. They read it. They talked about what was the most salient points of the chapter. They're creating a presentation for their peers on March 13th to share what they read. So it's a little share out. Each group read a part of this book. They're doing some action research, so they're trying something they read with students in the classroom and reporting out on how that went. And then the goal March 13th is that when everyone listens to what everyone's presenting, they're going to try to do one thing that they hear that they really like, that they want to try out with students themselves. And then in May, when we come back, everyone will be responsible for reporting out what they tried out. So it's great to be at PD, but if we don't follow through and try to actually put it into place, it falls on deaf ears. So the staff is always great about, thanks, Gary. If you don't want to staff is really great about trying to do the follow-through work that it takes. So I'm really excited about that. They were excited. I got an email from one teacher that said it was the best professional development day that he's had in a long time, because he really enjoys the time being with his colleagues and being able to do that work. So lots of good things around that. Just some events that are upcoming. There's a PAC meeting. It's actually in Florida, not Savoy, March 19th. The one that was scheduled in February, was canceled because of the weather. So we're continuing with that series, hoping to see parents from the school go up to attend. Again, it's about trying to figure out what things can we do at home with our own children to be able to promote literacy skills, math skills, things like that. And our related service providers are doing that workshop for families. We have student-led conferences coming up in March. So there's 2 half-days, March 21st and 22nd. Students are preparing to, again, read their own presentation of their learning with parents. That was really exciting to roll out last year.
That was pretty cool.
So, and I think with 1 year under their belts, it's going to be a really, I'm looking forward to this. And one thing that we're trying to do is have staff visit other conferences. So having junior high go down and sit in on a K-2 one or a 3 to 5 wing conference, because I think they can learn a lot from seeing how other teachers are doing, setting this up with students. So we'd like to see a lot of cross-pollination happening. And again, you're welcome to come too, because what we try to tell students is you have an audience to present to, and it's authentic when other people can come to those events. So I know you.
What time is it? Is it in the
So
morning?
it's half day on, so Thursday it runs from 12 all the way to 8 o'clock at night, and then Friday is 12 to 3.
be here at 8:00 then. I'll be here sometime during
So,
Sunday.
Friday,
Because of Friday.
Right.
12 to 3?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Our junior high goes to Shakespeare and Company on March 25th. And we continue to have students running mass mocha throughout the month. Different grade levels are going to those events. Just to update you on a couple of things that have happened, Ms. Johnson did take 3 junior high students to the math counts competition. That was, I think it was in Greenfield, I can't remember where. That was a couple weekends ago on a Saturday. Again, she volunteered her time to go and do this and have students experience a math competition. So that was exciting. Mrs. Johnson's 7th grade girls advisory group also did a movie night fundraiser where they donated the proceeds to the Tulo family. They were able to buy $150 worth of gas cards. They got Jacob a $100 gift card for his PlayStation games that he really likes to play while he's kind of stuck at home. And then he really wanted an ancestry DNA kit. And it's part of what Mr. Parkin is trying to have him do with social studies and incorporate a project in that. So that was really wonderful. The staff here also put together a chemo basket for him, just with lots of different things that people like to have when they're going through treatments. And we presented that to him last week, and he is in Boston this week and is doing very well with the surgery that he just had. So lots of giving going on here with students. Also, Mr. Little's 7th grade boys advisory group did a fundraiser at the father-daughter dance that occurred over Valentine's Day weekend, and they raised $3,800 for Soldier On. Mr. Little mentioned that they might do a little field trip down to the headquarters of Soldier On to just meet the president of the organization and kind of see the facility and present the money at that time.
Was he not again for Soldier On?
$3,800.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
They're really big though, right?
it was a big sale.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They made 3,800 from a
A
bake
big
sale?
sale.
yeah.
It's an impressive big sale.
I guess.
It's a lot of big.
Oh, I thought it was like maybe tickets for the father-daughter dance, and just a bake sale.
Water and food. Yeah. Yeah. And I want to mention Mrs. Quinto did a Donors Choose program online and was able to get stools for her classroom and multimedia headphones for all of her students. It's just, I just want to highlight that teachers do these kinds of things. When there's not money in our budget for them to be able to do the things that they want or to know that kids need, they are constantly looking for other ways to get the funds to be able to make these things happen. I just wanted to recognize her efforts to do that and bring that into the school. Okay, moving on.
Well, we commend all of the teachers and all that they
That's
do,
right.
these 3, especially because you brought them up with the events, but certainly great benefit to you.
Absolutely. Teaching and learning, I just wanted to share the MCAS testing schedule with you all.
Fun times.
Yeah, fun times. It's like game day, though. It is fun. It's like, like March Madness, but it's April Madness. April, May Madness. You know how I like to approach testing. This is our time to shine, so we gotta go at it like we're ready and we're excited about this, and that's what we communicate to students. Most of our testing occurs on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We start right before spring break with grades 6 through 8, and we should be finished by May 9th. Then we do some internal testing, our iReady and our DIBELS testing towards the end of the month. And that's it. We have an infrastructure test happening here with Josh tomorrow morning, so all the students will go online and try this out, so he can test our infrastructure We have, I have training with teachers to prepare them for MCAS on Wednesday. And we are in good shape right now with being ready. Everything's online.
Are the students doing the MCAS doing the already as well?
Yeah,
This week?
yeah, but they can do it the second week, and then they don't have, so it's a window for iReady, and it takes 2 days. It's not the whole time, every day. If teachers have the option to choose when they want to do it in that window, so that is kind of misleading. It's not 10 days of testing.
It's not a month of testing for some of
No,
us.
no.
It's like, oh wow, I'm gonna have.
Yeah, I know.
Get
Get ready. Get ready. So that's our schedule for MCAS.
We did have a meeting with the library, I guess, trustee board, where we were told we could use the library on Tuesdays for some testing, I believe, so that was, we had requested some more, access to the library as one of our points, and they, they had, said they would work together with, to try to schedule that on a Tuesday, because it would be quiet for the students, so I guess they're gonna open, but, I'm not sure that that's the plan still. That was what was mentioned that night, but we were just, requesting some more time for various reasons. And one of the things we talked about was that's a good space when you're trying to have different groupings that you're, required to do as part of the process. And when you have multiple grade levels testing on the same day, it's important to have some extra space to go to. So.
And we offered, we would be happy to have one of our staff members be over there if they didn't want to have to pay to have one of their employees be there. Mrs. Jerome offered that today to them when she talked on the schedule, that she would be happy to go over there and we could cover her station here. So if that's an option for them as well, to save on their budget of having to open on a day that they're not typically open, we wouldn't want to put them out like that, but we're happy to man that area and be sure that things are okay.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Jerome.
Yep. Okay. Blizzard bags, it has not been too snowy. Sure.
We only have 2 snow days, right? So, yeah.
2 snow days, right. We've done 1 blizzard bag though. That's what I want to talk to you about tonight. I just wanted to share with you completion rates of blizzard bag number 1 by grade level, just so you could see how it's panning out. And we really push for every which way we can get to 100%. And the teachers really, truly are persistent and persevere with, okay, what's the piece you're missing? How can I help? What do we need to do? And try to corral everyone. So I think our numbers look pretty good overall on our completion rates.
For 7th grade social studies.
Yeah, we're gonna try to do better.
Now, this is over 7 days.
Yes.
Once they finish the 7th, okay.
Yeah. And we saw this last year with junior high numbers sort of drop off.
Yeah.
It's just,
7th,
It's
junior high.
pretty high.
yeah, they are. So the question that I would like to ask school committee, I understand in a row, they were in a similar position where, we had a snow day before we had the blizzard bag set. And their workaround was they did sort of a retroactive blizzard bag. They sent it home over the break to offset that snow day. So I was wondering if the committee would consider doing something similar here so that we don't have to add an extra day on to the end of the school year. If we sent the blizzard bag home, let's say over April break, and gave students a week to work on the blizzard bag, to again offset the Monday. Otherwise, we're ending on June 13th versus June 12th.
Is that, DESI accepts that? I mean, it seems pretty wide open from DESI about these blizzard bags.
It does.
Okay.
I have not heard that we couldn't, and you were at the did Roe even, did they take it to school committee or did they just do it?
It's a similar bill, it's a similar report as you do, where he will bring his information to the school committee in regard to blizzard bags. I think they've had a, I don't know, they've had a place for it, but it's certainly in their situation, they already got 5 snow days, so it's a little bit of a different situation. I think Rowe and Savoy are 2 in Florida. Schools that get more snow days traditionally, so I think they have that plan in place to offset, so they're not going so late into June. There was a discussion, I think I think they've used 3 now, I believe, so they're 5 days.
I think as long as it replaces, because of the extenuating circumstances, that it would be okay. As long as, it's not like, oh, let's try to get an extra day, so we'll give them a blizzard bag kind of thing. As opposed to, well, there was a day off, it was a snow day, we did need one, we weren't ready. I think that's okay, but I wouldn't want it to be like a habit of doing it. I would hope that, maybe
I think we would want to prepare them ready in time, moving forward. I wouldn't want to do it this way. And, and I don't know that you need to make a decision tonight about it, because we have time. If you wanted to think about it, or...
Would it be something, how is it, have you discussed at a staff meeting, or is it, I'm just wondering, have we done this in the past, and do we need to get some student feedback to make sure they're gonna participate on the April vacation?
That would be,
I guess?
that would be my concern. And my concern, looking at the testing schedule, only break I see in there for our older students is their April break. And as a parent, to then come to my children and say, but guess what? Remember that day you had off? Now I'm gonna ask you to do schoolwork on your school break in between that testing. And I'm not belittling this, but for 1 day, in my eyes. And I'm speaking kind of as a parent, I don't know if you agree as well. I would certainly do it if I was given this. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it.
Right.
I just am trying to take that into account as well. Also, having heard some parents' feedback on some blizzard bag stuff, I feel like
We're also gonna be traveling, and sometimes it's,
a lot of people do.
yeah, hard. Yes, my kids will do them, and I don't personally have a problem with versus.
Right.
Other people having insurance, right?
So I could send out a parent survey and a student survey and gather some information and see.
I would feel more comfortable saying yes if there was overwhelming positive support to it. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and if you're in a
I'm sorry.
situation, like that where Savoy already has,
Correct, I'd feel very
Sorry,
differently. If we were
so-
talking 3 or 4 days, I'd feel differently than 1. And we don't know that that's not gonna change now either.
Right.
Well, I think we'll probably be prepared for
No,
things that come down
yeah,
our
right.
road.
Yeah,
But I do think that would change it for me as well.
Okay. I will send out a parent and student survey, and give those results for the next April 4th meeting.
And the other thing I just want to add too, and I don't know why this seems different to me, but I feel like if it were February break versus April break, I don't know why it would feel slightly different if they were doing it during that break. To make it up because it's closer. Well, I guess that's it. I think the weather's different. I think you're looking at a different type of a break potentially.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
I don't know. It feels different for me. So,
That's A-okay.
when we stayed home, we enjoyed anything in February, it would have been nice for them to have a blizzard.
yeah, right? Exactly. I guess maybe that's where I'm going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I agree. Okay. I wanted to update you just that the Wellness Committee has met twice so far this year. And the work that, we combined with Florida School to do collaborative wellness committee. The work that we're doing, we just met Wednesday, is to our responsibility as a committee is to make sure that the plan that we have in place is working. Are we being accountable to the things that are in the plan? And overwhelmingly we are, which is really exciting because this plan has been in place since I arrived here. And we've made tweaks to it and just updated things, but there were a lot of things in that. We had the goals of what we wanted to do in each section, and there were future goals, and it's nice to see some of those future goals move up, that we're actually doing some of the things that this committee from 4 years ago, 5 years ago, has wanted to do. one new thing that we are putting in place is a survey for next year, a pre and a post survey for students to really gather more data about whether or not the things we have in plan are having an impact or not. Because that's the piece that we feel like we're missing. We don't really have enough information to know if these things matter. We know that they probably do, good sound things, but it's nice to have some data to back that up. We have 2 bike to school dates already on the books, May 10th and May 17th, I think, if they're Fridays. And we have someone from Mass Bike or Safe Routes coming to do a bike safety training with students in April. We have Sharon from Many Forks Farm coming April 11th into the cafeteria. She'll be doing a healthy snack in conjunction with Joanne and some MCLA interns that she has, that Sharon has working with the farm, and trying to look at the calendar to see the dates. Yeah, May 10th and May 17th are the back to school days. So that's happening. That was part of our, what we committed to on our wellness policy. So there's some, just wanted to update you on that that's happening. Do you have any questions about our wellness policy? Okay. School choice. So this is the meeting when we typically look at school choice. And I wanted to pass this out to all of you to give you an overview of how this process goes for us. Do you need more on So, the March meeting, the April meeting is when we traditionally look at how many slots we have at each grade level. We wait on kindergarten because we have just put out the notice to ask families to register for kindergarten, so we always have to see how many residents we have in town. But that doesn't really stop us from looking at the enrollment in grades 1 through 8, which we know, or we assume for next year, based on our numbers now. And then we start to open up, once the committee approves, or we look at the numbers, then we have school choice applications that go out. And generally, this is our timeline based on your decisions on how many slots to open. We were going to choose May 6th to pick any lottery slots if we have more people interested than slots, because May 13th is our kindergarten orientation date. So we like to, if we have a lottery, we would want the families who are picked to be able to go to that orientation. So that's a week before the orientation, so they would be able to come. That's why May 6th was chosen as that date. This document goes up on our website so that families know. I talked to Josh about actually putting the school choice form on the site and having it almost be a survey that they can fill out online versus paper and bring it in to just make access easier. So that'll be a change for this year if he's able to do that, which I'm sure he can. So that's generally how I'm communicating to everybody what goes on in the school choice here. Do you have any questions about that timeline process, how it works? Then these are our enrollment number, our projected enrollment numbers for our grade levels based on who we have now. And some classes have shifted since we looked at this at the beginning of the year because students come and go. So this is what we're looking at. We have the high numbers where it says 30 is where we have our bubble classes currently. They would not be in one class. It's just the total grade level enrollment number. So our low class right now is 2nd grade. Moving into 3rd grade, we only have 13 currently. This is the space where I feel like we could open up a few slots with your approval to bring it to 15. You could also always have a resident move in that grade, and then it would be, it would go up from there. So I hate to put too many in there. But I think generally our other numbers are right around where our class sizes usually sit. This is always something we could revisit, and we could open up more slots and we have done that in August, or, you know, when we kind of see if anybody else is moving in or doing, or if these numbers are changing in any way, so, you can always add more slots, but you can't take slots away, so, I think it's a conservative way to look at it right now, and if, again, if we wanted to do more in August, we could.
So the projected enrollment includes school choice already?
Who are already here.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, who are ours forever. And I have no idea, again, we're kindergarten six, I haven't even, there's not even been any talk, you know, some years there's talk about, oh, it's a big class, it's a lot of kids, and I haven't heard that at all. So my guess would be that we would have some numbers in kindergarten, but I'll know by the next meeting.
I think we were discussing, we're losing, I believe, 5 slots from grade 8 through their promotion to the high school, so
Yeah.
you could, replace 2 of those with grade 3, then potentially there could be a few in kindergarten too.
Right.
So you can
Well,
offset
if we didn't get any feedback for grade 3 as to anyone moving into town, I think we could still raise that.
Yeah, we could have done some more. You know, I would say, so there's a question, and just for your knowledge, I had a scheduling meeting with teachers this afternoon, and the junior high is advocating for keeping grade 7 split. They're currently split, so that they would have 12 and 11. We're not at a place of deciding how that would actually work and run, and if that could really happen. So,
With 4 teachers now, they're proposing to split into 5 different classes, I guess.
I was trying to wrap my head around it, but I was giving everybody the opportunity to present what they felt like could work, because junior high felt pretty passionate about wanting to keep that split, so we were all listening. So we haven't figured that out yet, but I bring it up just to say, as things progress, and I would hope that in the next few weeks, I would know where we stand on that and be able to have more conversations about that. But one thing that happens is we often have requests for grade 7 slots, because students who may not want to be going up to a high school setting in other towns where they start at grade 7 now have looked over here to kind of, so I bring that up just to say, potentially, if we wanted to look at that at the April meeting.
Because then they would stay split through 8th grade
Yeah.
at that point then.
Right.
But the challenge is that with grade 6 moving into that
Correct.
team, there's 4 teachers for 4 classes, that would create a 5th class.
Right, I was trying to figure out how that would work, but I'm allowing a conversation to generate around how that might go. I'm not sure if I see it yet, but we're just keeping it open. So really, at this point, I would say the vote, like, what happened tonight would be for what's on the table to 3rd grade.
So I'll make a motion to keep the choice slots proposed as stated here until we get more information.
So to open two 3rd
Yes.
grade slots.
Thank you, yeah, 2 slots in 3rd grade, keep the others now open, yeah.
And then we can put that information out, and it can then be open for people to start to, as we get inquiries, we can tell them we have 2 slots and they can.
Any other discussion? No? All in favor? Yeah.
We have accepted the resignation of Erin Jennings as a special educator here, effective tomorrow. And have posted for a special ed position. I just wanted to make you aware of the staffing change. And I feel confident that we can be able to work internally to make sure services are provided until someone is adequately.
We're gonna fill it with internal subs until we make a decision.
And when does it close? Close.
Until we find someone, and hopefully soon. So I don't foresee this being something that we're waiting. a long time for.
We posted it internally first, we did that last Friday, so we satisfied the contract requirement of 5 days of being posted, so. There was also discussion with the union about why wasn't it being posted externally, so we decided to do that yesterday, when it was posted,
Yeah.
so. It wasn't, I looked at the contract, it wasn't required to do it, but we just thought that, we would do it just to keep the peace, but just to listen to their request, and I think we do have some internal candidates that
We
are.
have 2 applications so far.
It's a tough time of the year to choose, so we just were, thinking externally, we weren't sure that would be with only being able to commit at this point to the rest of the year. We hope it'll be a long-term position, but we're just, as we're going through this budget process, we don't, we're still working our way through that, so we didn't want to, it's kind of like the kitchen manager position, where we didn't want to make a commitment that, we couldn't fulfill 100%, even though we hope that this will be a long-term position.
And then we have posting for a cook, because we are still in a position. We had subs who have been filled, Sue Berger is leaving. She does the part-time job as a salad bar queen right now, that is her official title. She is retiring again, because she's already retired once, but she's retiring March 20th from that position, so when people are, bumping around in the kitchen a little bit, we needed somebody to be a cook. Joanne wanted to be a cook, we asked her to please stay as the manager till the end of the year, so we have a cook, that position posted that only goes until June, because of the conversation that we had earlier, so that's out there too. And we have some candidates for that already, so I think we'll be fine. And the last thing is just, nothing pressing, but I have had some inquiry about using our gym for events that, families may want to, community members might want to use it for, like a birthday party or something like that. And so I wanted to ask, or open up discussion around thoughts on, I didn't feel like I could personally, in my position, make the decision as to whether or not, a school building should be open to the community or, for personal things. So I wanted, but I think it's a good idea, so I wanted to present it to you all. Because we don't have a community center type of place in Clarksburg. Like Williamstown has their youth center, and then there's birthday parties there and events there, and they rent it out and they earn some income on it as well. So I didn't know if we wanted to explore that option here. There's a lot of talk with the new renovation of the building on the table about having the school be more of a community hub. And when we thought we were going to have a big gym and everything, that we could, host events and do different things like that, and really, again, make really good use of the school and have the community value it in that way as well. Beyond just the educational purposes that it serves all day long. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention, kind of open up the discussion and see if it was something to explore for the future.
How do we, the people that use the gym now for nighttime sports activities or different things, are they charged a fee?
No.
So anybody who uses the gym at this time does not pay?
Would have questions about liability
Just making
and
sure.
and safety, because it's such a small entity, and capacity-wise, how would that work? Just questions, I guess.
And maybe those are some questions we could ask Adam
Right.
to see
Yeah.
if there's a waiver form
Right.
to put in place.
Right, because right now, the way the budget stands, if something were to happen,
Mhm.
to the building, so to speak,
Right.
could we right now afford to replace, I don't know, a mat gets ripped or something like that on a wall or something like that, could we afford to replace that? Who's liable for that? And if we're covered, then to me, I'm certainly always in agreement. I think it's great if you can open the door. I know how it feels when the doors are closed. So I would not like to be that type of, I don't see the school as being that type of a place, but I think we do have to make sure that we are fully covered.
Right.
And if you did charge, would the fee go to the town or the school, or the town via the school?
Probably some of it should go to Mike Peters for
Oh, absolutely.
cleaning up.
Well, that's the thing,
whatever.
right, so we have to staff, right, what is the, yeah, I'm trying to think of,
Yeah.
our PTG here has used, like we use the American Legion for a painting party. And I know we stayed and cleaned everything up, but I also know we paid a fee to use their space.
Right.
And so I'm not sure how does all that work.
I have another question. If we started to use the building for other after-hours purposes, so like say a weekend, and we currently don't charge the ones at night, for example, use a gym, and use it for long periods of time, then would we have to, so if you start charging one group, to justify not charging the other group, that I'm gonna say would probably have some pushback. They've used it for many years, I think, in some of those groups I've heard of, so that'd be something to discuss, I think, you know.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it makes me think, you know, I know that,
Do we do that, who keeps the building open and closes the building for them?
there's a key in a lockbox, and they come in when you're in.
They don't have to pay, but do they have to sign anything?
They do sign something,
Does it go through Mary to reserve it?
yeah, so there must be something on that, and I don't have I can't remember what the phone website, but I wonder, it must have something about liability on it, or
Right.
thinking it does. So,
So recently, I was one of those that questioned
yeah,
about using the gym space, just because I didn't know birthday, because it was Griffin's birthday. So we ended up holding it at the Williamstown Youth Center. And they charge $100 to use their little gymnasium. I mean, it was perfect for what we were looking for. They have a gym space, they have a classroom space where they have tables, chairs, little lockers, so all the kids could just hang things up. And right off of that is a little kitchen area. And I didn't realize all this was, we were able to use it, and we were. I mean, there was an oven, there were sinks, there was a refrigerator, everything was at our disposal. And on Friday, this party was on Sunday, I think, or Saturday, whatever. I picked up the key and signed a simple form on Friday. Took the key, I let myself in a half hour before the party to set up for it. We stayed and cleaned up. A custodian came in around the time, so the building I think closes at 5, so he came in around the time when we were leaving to kind of take the trash out. But no, it was just a perfect place to do everything. Now, when I realized that, and I thought what I was asking for here, I don't, you know, could we meet those same needs and really make it such a functional space? I mean, yes, the kitchen's right there. Would we let people use that area and the sinks and obviously not their ovens and stuff, but, you know, things like that.
Chairs, the photos, right, for a reason.
Right, what would we expect?
Well, in the American Legion, I know that, I know we paid $100, and that's for the room. That was not
Yeah.
for any other amenities.
I mean, I was shocked to begin with that they just gave me a key and said, oh yeah, just, you know, either give it to us later or leave it in the box outside, which isn't a locked box.
right.
Well, it's interesting, I mean, different schools have different,
Yeah.
I think, policies. I know that, I mean, North Hampshire is allowed, I think it's grad school, and now with Colgrove being renovated, they use those gyms for, they use basketball league to use. I know they charge them, that's a point of
They
contention.
do charge them.
Some people,
Yeah.
is,
So Williamstown does too.
I don't think that's about, yeah.
Maybe.
It's under, it's the maintenance workers contract.
Right.
Yeah, because it was like, I don't know, if it was $1,200 to use Drury High School, and that's why they went to Colebrook, because it was less expensive or something, but it was because of the,
Right, and if you use it on off hours, you have to, under those agreements, pay a custodian because they have that as part of their union agreement, which we don't necessarily have here, but we know at least something that we have to consider, because if you have a, you know, on a weekend, we trust that people are going to do the right thing, but we come in Monday morning, it's not.
Right.
Take
Yeah,
care
that's
of
right,
them, that could
right.
be a problem, so.
Yeah, and we do, you know, whenever we have something like a dance or, we always have staff, so we know, like, you can't leave the toilet running downstairs because, run our well dry or whatever. I mean, like, so you do sort of need somebody to check in at the end of something, if it's the weekend.
So that could be part of the fee you would charge, is that
Yeah.
somebody has to come in to make sure you open and close it possibly.
Right. And I think considering tight budgets and things like that, and, could be just a way to help put some money back into our building
Yeah.
for, little piece of that out. So,
Well, it's an interesting question about where would the revenue go to, because, that was, our renovation discussion on the last
yeah.
meeting where, there were sort of some good points made by some of our residents about, we were putting to $25,000 in our budget for capital improvements, and there was a question, I think, from Mr. Bona about, the town and their responsibility towards the building, so, yeah, could those fees be used towards that? I mean, it could be something that could be, towards improvements and just general operating expenses too. So, I mean, there's ways, but where does it actually go? Have to be an agreement about what would be the policy for that.
I think if they made a check out to Clarksburg School, then it'd go to us.
Yeah.
One
Well,
more
we
day.
could put it right towards our security system, so that we could then see how things are transpiring.
It's true, I mean, and,
Good point.
yeah, those little things that we desperately, need to chip away at.
Right.
So I think it's something to consider.
Thank you for your report.
So just next steps on that, I mean, would we check with our attorney and see about,
Yeah, we can ask them about a liability or a waiver type of agreement, like is there a standard one
okay.
use other schools, his recommendation, I guess, about what else we should look into for that,
Okay.
if we're gonna look into that type of policy.
And would we revisit this at our next meeting, or?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we should almost put that on the agenda for next time, too, so that is maybe a continuing business agenda item.
Superintendent Franzoni.
I think we've covered most. I was planning to discuss the technology position, the business administrator position, the special ed position here. I think we've really covered all of those topics, I believe, at this time. So my report's already been, I guess, in pieces in other parts of the meeting.
Negotiation sessions, those have been will be rescheduled, but we're
Right.
not meeting tomorrow.
Yes, we were supposed to have one, well, we talked about having one tomorrow. There's been some dialogue between Attorney Dupre and the rep from the MTA about, a possible shorter deal, just because of the, financial situation in town, our pending interstate merger proposal. So there was a discussion that maybe we should just do a one-year agreement. So there was some discussion about that. The teachers union is discussing if that's what something they want to explore. So we're supposed to have a meeting tomorrow, but the feedback that Adam received from the union was they weren't ready to discuss that yet. So we're going to wait for another date to discuss that option with them. We thought that would just be, given the situation right now, we thought it'd be a one-year agreement would be an option for us to consider.
The interstate merger proposal.
Yeah, I mean, we had our weekly conference call this morning. It was just myself and Anna. Elizabeth wasn't available today, so we reviewed, as we did last week, their visit here the last week in February. They had good focus groups, good participation from all the different groups that they, starting. We had a little bit of a challenge with the joint town meeting on Monday night because of the storm, and then there was a hole down which made anybody coming from Clarksburg had to go through a detour to get to Stanford for that meeting. So we did not have a large Clarksburg turnout, but we did have a good turnout from Stanford, and it was filmed. I did send out those dates, I think, when it was on. I think they're still going on this week. I just sent that out last week about when the dates are for Northern Berkshire Community Television. Also, when it is posted online on their website, Joanne Robert will let me know about when that is available, so people can just go onto their website. There's a YouTube channel they use now, I guess, to rebroadcast their events. So she's going to let me know about that as well. And it was a good. I think it was the one thing about that joint town meeting. It was conducted as like the focus groups were, where they asked people the same questions that we were asked in that initial meeting we had back in January for the interstate group with them, about asking what their hopes were for the project, what their fears were, their concerns, and what they hoped to get out of a possible merger, and what they were scared about in terms of that possibility. And I think it's been a good chance for them to clarify some information. They usually don't do that, they said in the focus groups, but they a couple times it gave them the opportunity to, I think, correct some misconceptions that people have about what the proposal is about. So they're still collecting information and figuring things out and making plans for the recommendations. Their next meeting with the interstate group is on March 29th. They're going to share some of their findings with us before they have another session in April to plan for the May 15th, which is the last joint town meeting to have planned with both of the communities to share their findings. So that was one thing we had a discussion about, was the interstate merger group, mainly because of the Stanford side of it, and also some requests from our select board. Those meetings have all been open meetings, but some of these are kind of work sessions. So we had some discussion today about not feeling like we're having a session at 10:30 in the morning on March 29th. And those need to be open sessions. They've been doing a great job of being transparent. They have an email group they send information out to. They are constantly sharing the information. And this next session is really just a planning session to figure out how to present it to the town. So there was some discussion about not having more than a quorum of each school committee there or select board, so that we wouldn't have to necessarily close those meetings, the next meeting, because it's not necessarily a public meeting, I would say. But they have been, I think the way they've conducted this process has really been very helpful towards informing all the residents, answering questions, addressing any concerns that have been brought up, and clearing up misconceptions, which I think is a key part of this process. And there certainly are still, let's say, red flags or challenges to work through. I mean, they've been talking a little bit to a rep from DESE about the licensure issue. This was one of those proposals to share between the two schools, possibly reconfiguring. So having an early childhood center in one of the buildings and having the older grade levels in the other building. So while that might create some space, hopefully, in each building, it also would necessitate moving some teachers around. So you might have a Massachusetts teacher going to Vermont and Vermont going to Massachusetts. So how are those states going to handle that? And the concern is that in Massachusetts would be more challenging because of their just history in terms of not reciprocating the licenses of other states. So we're trying to get some information about that. They've been communicating with superintendents up in Vermont and New Hampshire that have gone through an interstate merger to get their feedback, and they're very thorough in their process. So helping us, a lot. I know one of the things they mentioned too, going back to the contract for a second, was the person that's a retired superintendent mentioned that the Stanford and Clarksburg contracts for teachers are much different. So that would be something that they're really doing a great job of looking into early, so we don't have those problems later. To make sure that's worked through before any agreement is settled on, or not settled on. So a lot of information is still to come, but it's hard to believe that we're into our third month with them already, and we've asked them to finish this up by May, which is really a challenging timeline for them, and they're staying on schedule.
I want to point out that we have put up on the website, so if you are on our main website, on the homepage, there's a button to go here, and I've given Josh the PowerPoints. There is the email address is here for people to email. If you scroll back, the iBerkshire's article is here. the schedule of all the work groups, or the focus groups that they were doing. So there's sort of a timeline of what's gone on for people to catch themselves up, so that if the information's out there.
So great, so if you go to the Clarksburg School website, you can get all the information. There's a,
Right.
is it on the front page, there's a?
So when you're on the home page, at the bottom, there's a interstate merger button here, and you can get to it if you go to students and families, it's there too. So we put it in a couple different places so people can find it.
Excellent.
And the renovation, that's kind of at a standstill right now.
Yeah, there's not, we just, we appreciate, but first of all, thanks for holding the meeting a little earlier today, so I can attend the United Way fundraiser later. The renovation group, we decided to hold that off until April. There's not really anything new to it, I think, review it this time. In regards to those roof funds, it's kind of we talked about before, I don't think there's gonna be any movement on that until the town decides to make a commitment to put some money into the school. I think it's kind of goes, I've said this a lot of times, I think it's kind of like asking for a mortgage without having a down payment. So I think that that's where we stand right now, is there gonna be a proposal put in place at town meeting that would be voted on to see if the town of Clarksburg will approve. I know we talked about the debt exclusion. I haven't heard much more about that recently, if that's going to go forward, but my understanding was that they were going to bring it to the select board for their approval to go to town meeting to see if that would be voted on by the residents. And that money, that if that's generated, we talk about $500,000 for the town, $500,000 for the school, that could address the need for the boiler or the grant that's, there's the bids we got previously were above the grant amount. It could address the school roof issue, it could address the security issue in the building. It could address several issues, I think. So we have to prioritize those needs for our school building before it goes to that meeting. So I'm going to ask, I haven't talked to Mr. McKinney in a while about that, so I'm going to ask Mr. Boucher to meet with us about where that stands.
That's if we get half, as they say.
Right.
My understanding is that you have to, for that debt exclusion, you have to, I think, you have to submit what the money is going for. So I think we should have, some priority items that I think we can very easily do here between the roof, the boiler, the ADA compliance, the security issues. Those four, right off the top of my head, would be, I think, proposals we have to put together to be part of that, because I think it's important to clarify that, right, it's going, as they said it's going towards the school, the town and the school, I should say, so that's important.
Anything else? Questions? No? Okay, no need for executive session, so we will close the meeting at 6:27 p.m.
Great.
Everybody?
Thank you.
Thank you.